I'm Elise, and you're listening to the Talk Carby to Me podcast.
Big shout out to the state of Michigan lately. You had the Detroit Lions make it to the NFC Championship game
Yeah.
and blow it. However, Michigan picked up the slack, which I'm sure you're happy about.
Yeah. Our hearts were a little broken last weekend, but um, super proud of our team still. So Dan Campbell's the man.
He's a wild man. The
Yeah.
the balls on that guy. Would you have preferred that they just got destroyed from the beginning of the game instead of having a huge lead and then giving it up?
No, no. We should have won that game. Too many mistakes were made. Um, but, I fully expected us to go to the Super Bowl. So, yeah, it was a little bit of a shock, but I'm glad that they at least played their hearts out, and yeah, just too many mistakes in that second half.
Yeah, they kind of had the whole team of destiny thing going on all year, which is nice to see.
Yeah. Yeah, give us hope.
Yeah, it's funny, the last time they were in the NFC Championship game, MySpace wasn't invented, just to put that in perspective as a fan
Yeah,
base.
I don't think it's been my lifetime, and I don't think the Super Bowl was even called the Super Bowl back like when they were in it. So, it's like 1965 or something.
Yeah, yeah, super long time ago.
Yeah.
So today we're joined by none other than my very own personal trainer, Elise, who's going to join us today, chop it up a little bit and talk about some things she's got going on, things she likes to do, ways she used to torment me. So I'm sure this would be very insightful into what led me to becoming the person that I am today.
Aw. Well, thanks. Yeah, hopefully you have good memories, overweighing the, you know, torture I put you through. But yeah, you were always a great client. That was how many years ago that I worked with you?
It's got to be
5 or 6?
6, maybe pushing 7.
Okay.
Yeah, most of them are good memories, except that the one fateful day with those good lateral lunges, which I
Yeah. But yeah, you were always a client that, worked very hard and was ready to put your all into every session. So that's always appreciated.
yeah, that's graduated to like me being willing to die during a workout session now. Yeah, I've had the conversation a lot, and they're like, "Oh, you're working out awfully hard. Like, shouldn't you take a rest here?" And I'm like, dizzy. I'm like seeing stars, about to meet the wizard. I was like, if I die, I die. Like, whatever. We're cool with it.
Sometimes a good thing, sometimes a bad thing, that athlete brain where you just want to push yourself to your limits, but sometimes you learn the hard way.
Yeah, I kind of learned that's been kind of like one of the biggest lessons I've taken from this year. In large part, I've approached it as like when you look at that limit conversation, it's like, what is the limit? And for the most part, none of us really know. Um, Unlike the average day of human existence, like you really don't need to know how fast you could run if you were running all out. Like if you had to give an all out effort, could you? You hear those stories of like, people in car accidents, and then like someone comes in with this Herculean strength, like to rescue a child or to rescue a loved one. But mostly for most of us, we just kind of go through life kind of passively. The demands of our environment doesn't really bring that out. So I always try to seek like, how far could I run if I just didn't stop, regardless of whether I was in pain or something was hurting, or how much work could I put through my body? Like, what's going to break first, like my spirit or my body? Like that iconic line from Batman. Um, but there is a cost to that, right? That athlete brain
Yeah.
functions similar to like if you were sitting in a Ferrari versus if you're sitting in a Honda Civic. Or like a Honda Civic, you're going the speed limit. You're not going to be out there speeding, taking these crazy turns. You're going to stop at red lights. You're going to brake at stop signs, signal when you turn left. Or on a Ferrari, you're taking that thing to the track and you're just letting it rip. Tires are going to pop. You might blow out, need new brakes immediately. Obviously, the threat of crashing and stuff like that. So it's a very similar metaphor to kind of training and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's kind of a lesson I've learned through my life though, is that wellness isn't always in the extremes. I mean, it's good to push yourself to do hard things, frequently, but yeah, it's balance, right?
Sometimes it's balance. I don't often lead the most balanced life because I don't believe it. I think it's a lot of it's a matter of like perspective. But if you want like major change to happen for at least a short period of time, you need to be a little unbalanced.
Right.
Like certain things are going to have to be sacrificed. But yeah, the it's funny. It's like one of my buddies. I would go to his garage gym sometimes, and I would just pull up, park my car, swig some pre workout, walk into his garage, right into a set of bench press, and be fine. And then you transition that a year later and compare it, and I can't even bench 100 pounds right now. It's getting better, but um,
Yeah. So have you done anything since we last talked? Like, how have you changed your program in regards to your?
so I just tell myself I'm going to be a Kardashian now and just only do leg day.
Okay.
So upper body pushing days are severely limited because I don't really have full use of my right arm. Pulling days seem to be good, but I've been doing a lot of spinal work, mobility stuff through my thoracic, a lot of bar hangs actually, which has been almost like
Love
a
it.
lifesaver. And just breathing exercises, get the ribs moving, and just it's almost like the most significant deload ever for my upper body. Pushing anyway, so chest, shoulders, triceps, which I'm sure will have its advantages long term because I don't feel as like worn down, especially not in my joints. However, it's just very annoying. Uh, it's a weird thing where it's like I've built this suit of armor, and then it's like it doesn't work, and it's just like oh, so like I think mentally it's the worst part of it. Because largely for me, exercise is like my way of lashing out. I'm very like neutral demeanor, very calm, very stoic, and I just save everything for that moment when I'm working out, and then I just process whatever nightmare I'm dealing with in that time frame, and I can't do that as effectively, so it's kind of annoying.
Yeah, I can relate. Yeah, hopefully you'll learn a lot, and I'm sure you'll be a better coach for it.
Yeah, thankfully, in my 7 years of existence as a coach, I've never had someone to this point. It's usually like I get them when they're here, and I bring them
Right.
out of it. So it's a little different when it's you. That's like I can't move my arm. When you work with people, and let's just use me as an example. When you met me, right? I was spent 2 hour commute both ways in a car. No real fitness expertise other than push ups and sit ups in the army and running. What are some things that you're looking for in someone like that?
Like assessment wise, like what
Yeah,
do I so I look at, obviously we go through a whole process of talking about what they've been doing, what hasn't worked, what maybe they found does work, what they like, what they don't like, their goals, what they have available to them. And then like assessment wise, I'm looking at their rotation. I'll look at their feet, how well they can pronate, supinate. Toe touch test is one that I do. I look at their mobility, their overhead mobility, their hip and shoulder, internal, external rotation, just a general like assessment of where they're at, and what they have access to. And then, do you know how to orient your pelvis? Can you shift your hips?
the tuck.
Yeah, the tuck, which I'm guilty of maybe overcoaching in the past. But yeah, I think just you know what's their movement capacity? How can we make that better? And still give them things that they love to do, that they're good at, so they feel confident in what they're doing, but also, throw in some things, or maybe a slightly different variation or different way of loading an exercise, so that we can give them more of what they need as well.
Yeah. I can still hear your voice, every single workout. Tell me, "Tuck, tuck."
Yeah,
I'm like, "Oh, I got it."
I
Uh,
can still see your gait pattern, and yeah, but good times.
yeah. Do you buy into the whole, like, sitting is killing people, so we need a standing desk and we need, like, a walking desk and, like, the pedals that people put under their desk to walk?
I think it's more like, you know, eh, like changing your posture throughout the day. So like, there's no bad posture, but you want to be able to move in different ways, and you don't want to be stuck, you know, in certain positions.
Yeah. Anytime I see a video where someone's like, "I got a standing desk, and now I'm standing at work all day for, like, 8 hours." I'm like, "You're gonna stand in that one spot for 8 hours? Like, you think that's gonna save you from anything?
Right, yeah.
Like, go work somewhere where you have to stand up 8 hours and be stationary, not, like, walking around, moving around all the time. You're just standing in one spot, typing on
Yeah.
a keyboard or whatever it is you do, like, hell no. No shot. I think of it like everyone has the posture that they deserve based on how they spend their time. So, if you're at a computer all the time, you're gonna have that, like, hunched over look. I
Right.
mean, most things that, people do occupationally are gonna induce that. If you see people, if you meet someone who's had a job where they're on their feet for a long time, kind of like in that stationary thing, they have a very different posture. It's almost like the opposite, where they're stiff as a board. They don't rotate very well. They don't bend very well, as opposed to the opposite, where the other people that are hunched over don't extend very well through their spine. And through like exercise, what you want to do is add in the tools and crutches that will help you achieve different postures that you need as you move through the world. I think we get so caught up in like, oh my God, your shoulders are hunched over. Let me fix that for you.
Right. Yeah, it's probably not one thing. It's, a combination of things.
It's like you look at someone and it's like, I can fix him. It's like, no, honey, you can't, but you can help him.
Yeah.
So programming for someone, right? Once you find out like what they do, like how do you build out your program? Especially if like I think when we first met, we'll use this as an example. I hated to deadlift because every time I deadlifted, hey, back pain. And then once we moved past that and, I have more mobility and strength, now it's mostly just like I'm expecting it, even though it might not necessarily come. So it becomes the thing that I hate. And it's like, oh, this is awful. Like, let's go do the fun stuff. Like, how do you build out a program like that for someone?
So specifically, if they have like an exercise they don't want to do or don't like, or just in general.
In general, but like with a mix of that element too, because I think we all have those things that we don't like, that we do it anyway.
Right. Yeah. So it depends on where they're starting and their history. If I have someone who's never lifted a weight before in their life, um, program wise, I'll probably start them out with more of like a linear progression, where we're decreasing volume, increasing intensity over time, and sticking with a lot of the, basic staple exercises, so they can learn how to do those really well. And then we'll add, strength on top of that, or, you know, it obviously depends on their goals, but, um, if I get somebody who has a history of exercise, maybe they've already done certain programs or had a trainer before, then we might do something a little more advanced, like an undulating or conjugate kind of program design. Um, I feel like that, you know, gives them a variety to where you can um, train different things, and, prevent burnout.
Yeah.
But yeah, if someone has like, I mean, a lot of people I feel like have that fear of deadlifting, um, which, I'm not married to any one particular exercise. Deadlifting is, some form of hip hinging is going to be in my programs. Although, maybe if someone really does find that, deadlifts just aren't great for them, maybe I'm going to give them like kind of a hingier lunge, or, something along those lines where, um, we can give them something that they can do without producing pain, um, but might help improve their movement capacities. So, and sometimes it's just getting them out of that like fear of doing it, and helping them realize, okay, this is how you do it properly. You can handle this weight, well, and it feels good. So, slowly progressing them from there.
Yeah, programming is a funny thing. I always put. I think as you get to know your client, find out what they like, what they're just naturally good at doing based on their movement capabilities. I always like to put the really good thing that they enjoy, followed by the thing that they hate the most. It's happened before in like radio stations. You can see it on TV programming. Well, they'll have like a really good show, and then they'll have the really bad show right after it that they're trying to be like, hey, this is actually good, like, and stuff like that. And sometimes the show is actually good, but it's just not popular for whatever reason, or the song isn't popular. So if it plays after something that's presumed to be like super good, super enjoyable, a great time, usually it builds that like, oh yeah, right after this good thing happens this, and it's suddenly not so bad. Um, so I usually like to work some of that stuff in for that. I don't generally. I largely don't care though. It was just a thought, just some curiosity that I had on it. Because I've played with elements. I've had people where I've had to like, they're like, oh my god, every time I do this, like it feels like I'm dying, or this hurts or that hurts. I'm like, so like you kind of play with the variables a little bit, or find a different way to do it.
Right. Yeah. Educate them, and yeah.
What I've kind of gravitated towards mostly is I'll just put all the hard stuff that they don't like, whether they like it or not, right at the beginning. So warm up, bang, the hardest, most hateful thing that I could have you do, and then that kind of eases that over time. But at least they're fresh and they're ready to go for that.
Yeah, I've had one or two people that have straight up refused to do certain things, or like people who don't like to do anything new. They like what they like, and they just want to keep doing that. So it's kind of a process of, yeah, like educating them like how this movement might benefit them, or, maybe just modifying it in a way that like the lunge example, that they can wrap their brain around, and like, okay, I can do this. It's not that bad.
I always hate when people are like, oh, this isn't fun. I was like, what part of this do you think is supposed to be fun? Like, if
Yeah.
you if you want fun, go jump in a group fitness class.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
blow out your rotator cuff, and then come back to me and explain to me how fun that was.
Yeah. There's definitely got to be a level of discomfort that they, get used to. But I mean, I want people to enjoy the session, but, challenge them for sure.
Yeah, I look at it also like the session overall. If you fuck your day up yourself, no one else can fuck it up for you. So just go hard, die, and then when you approach the rest of the day, literally nothing will be as bad as what just happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, makes you think, but when you think about it, you're like, yep, like
It's a good way to go about it, maybe too, if you get people who aren't making those lifestyle changes like outside of the session. Um like, say they come in hungover or something, like, um my brother used to come to my boot camp classes back when I was a new trainer, and he would come in all hungover. He was a college student, but he had to learn the hard way a little bit. Like, that's not what you know, come prepared. Try to get your sleep, eat something, stay hydrated.
yeah. I couldn't imagine. working out. Like I could have done it working out hungover, especially like once you cross 30, whatever happens at that invisible threshold where your hangover just lasts for like 7 days. That's the worst.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not a drinker anymore. So, yeah, cut that out. Come from an Irish family though, so
Yeah. Contrary to what my features appear to be, I do have some Irish blood in me. That's might be where I get the iron liver from, but that is not transcended well, in my 30s, as far as like hangovers.
right. Yeah. Yeah, I think, it just doesn't do anything for me anymore these days, so
Yeah. Yeah, I might have yeah, like I might have a glass of wine or two at night. Maybe about once or twice a week, usually while I'm like reading a book or something like that, which it's kind of all I've done the past 2 weeks. If you follow me on Instagram, you know what I've been reading. Highly recommend. Uh, but yeah, I try not to, mostly just because, I mean, socially, yeah, but I don't have that longing anymore. I think it's because, in the past, in my past life, as we'll call pre age 26, I drank a lot, like blacked out 4 nights a week. And then there were times, then that eventually gravitated to, I just had a shitty day at work. I'll just drink a glass of Jameson while I'm watching TV, and like some dark days back there, but just doesn't feel great. So, so I can't imagine, going into a class or a workout session and like trying to be like super gung ho, just hungover and like you're full of booze. And it's like, oh,
yeah, those days are long gone.
you saw that study that I sent you, right?
Yes, I did.
So, a very interesting study was published recently that was comparing the benefits of the omnivore diet versus the vegan diet. They took 8 subjects. Uh, they chose elderly populations, and they gave them a diet that was omnivore and a diet that was vegan for the other set. And they kept them in a lab all day. And they did a biopsy, and they wanted to see how much protein synthesis was going on versus the various diets. What they found, or actually, before I get there, each person, they went on the omnivore diet, they did their test. A couple weeks later, they came back and they switched the groups. So they had the experience of both. The good thing about this study that I enjoyed was that they kept the calories the same, right? So the meals are almost identical as they could get them, from composition to calorie count, macro count. As opposed to, if you have a Netflix subscription, which most of us do, they have that new, I forget the name of it.
Game Changers or something? Is that the one you're
Not Game Changers, but it's in the same vein. So it's like 4 groups of twins, and they tested this almost the same thing, but the vegan people on the vegan diet had way less calories, and there was no attempt at making the meals the same. So obviously, at the end of that study, because the calories are diminished, it's going to look like the person that had less calories lost weight and had better health markers. So it's a really, really bad slant. So this one, everything is matched up. And what they actually found was that the people on the vegan diet had 47% less protein synthesis from their meals. I personally love jesting at the vegan community, but I won't this time. We'll take the helpful side of this. Before I go into like my thoughts on it, as far as like what to do with that information, like what did you think seeing that research?
So it was interesting, I mean, I the first thing that stood out was, like, that it was funded by the meat industry, correct? This study?
I believe so.
So that's, one thing, but, also they only looked at soy protein, correct?
For which one?
For the study. They were, using soy protein for the plant-based.
I think they used a mix, possibly.
Okay. I'll have to relook at it. Um, but yeah, I mean, from a macronutrient perspective, obviously we know that plant-based foods, have more of a mixture of macronutrients. So it's not like chicken, where chicken is protein. they have fiber and other things. So it was interesting that they tried to balance that. But yeah, just from other studies I've seen, um, where they used more of a blend of different plant proteins, um, to get all the essential amino acids, there wasn't really much change or not a significant change between the animal protein and the mixture of the plant-based proteins. So I think for me, like, um, if you're eating a plant-based diet, you're gonna need to it's a little more work, to get the protein maybe, but you're gonna need a variety of food to meet your needs in that regard. So
The variety is important. So, I mean, one thing that is an objective truth is when you eat meat proteins, you have a wider variety of amino acids that are going to be found in the food. When you have a vegan diet, we know that you're more at risk for being deficient in some of your amino acids. So the variety comes in super key because you want to get the most out of the food that you're eating, the food that you're consuming. Um, One thing with it too, in that study from the data that they got, it didn't take into account like a direct uh, not a direct, like an isolated form of vegan protein. One difference just biologically between vegetable that has protein and meat, the meat is more bioavailable. In the vegetables, you have to break down the fiber to get to the protein. So someone who has like gut issues or maybe their microbiome isn't the healthiest, have digestion issues, they might not get all of their food. I think if the best advice to someone who's on a vegan diet and you're trying to lose weight and maybe you aren't seeing as much results, maybe protein might be your concern. I think it might be best to underestimate the amount of protein you're eating, just on the assumption that you're going to need more based on your digestive capabilities and depending where it's from. If you're on a vegan diet, obviously you should be supplementing amino acids. If you're on a meat based diet, probably not the most important thing other than making your water tasty and blue. But I thought it was an interesting study. I would have loved to see a different kind of population though.
yeah, for sure.
And I'm not sure what went into that. Like, I mean, it's a study. They obviously paid for it, but they were sitting there for 12 hours just waiting to, digest, let everything pass through, and then take the biopsy. But in elderly populations already, we know, you know, not everything works as it did in youth. So I would have liked to see like a youth population, an athletic population, like a regular run of the mill age 25 to 35 population to see how that played out. Or someone who's like a bodybuilder or like an elite athlete, just kind of jacked to see what kind of results that might have put through. Um, but an interesting study nonetheless. As much as I'd love to sit here and like, haha, vegans suck it. Big meat strikes back, if that's even what the industry's called. I highly doubt it, but I think I'm going to go with that from now on. Um, I think it's best to just say you probably need a little bit more than you think because you're not getting as much. And obviously, if you have questions about that, consult a professional.
And yeah, don't rely on like one source of like, don't just eat beans and like think that that's your main, you know. I mean, everyone, whether you're vegan or not, should be trying to get a variety of food, but
If I never hear the word legume again or beans, I'm like, yeah, I'm all set. I think, oh yeah, I eat beans. I added beans in it. Like, yeah, did you know that beans are more carbs than protein? Like, did you think of that?
yeah.
While we're on the topic, it's good to see big meat fighting back. So that's the new industry, big meat. Um, you see a lot of studies lately. They did the correlation between people who were on red meat for extended period of time to see if it had any change in the markers for cancer, diabetes, heart disease, things of that nature. They largely found nothing, although there was a slight correlation with breast cancer. Um, you've got a lot of studies that are popping out. You've got more studies being done on the difference in bone density in humans when they look at if they're on a vegan diet or an omnivore diet. You got the study that we just mentioned, so it's good to see them kind of coming back because we've seen a lot of. I mean, Game Changers on Netflix is propaganda, literally. Um, this most recent one, it's funded. Like the scientist running the experiment is a vegan. The guy funding it is a vegan. So it's like you take those things kind of with a grain of salt because I've like to sit here and say like vegan is the only way, or to sit here and say like carnivore is the only way, like both statements are wrong because what we do know is we benefit from a balance of things. Um, but it's good to see some change starting to happen, or at least it's the narrative isn't so skewed one way.
Right.
Have you tried the carnivore diet yet?
I have not, and I honestly don't know that I ever will. um, I don't think I will ever. Mainly because so I have PCOS, which so I don't think doing the carnivore diet would really benefit me in the past when I've gone very low carb. Um, I've had some, neuropathy actually, or blood sugar issues. So for me personally, I've found in healing my PCOS, it's very important for me to get a variety of foods. Each time I eat, I'm trying to get my protein, my carbs, my healthy fats, and focusing more on like an anti-inflammatory diet. Um, so yeah, I don't think the carnivore diet's for me. I do plan on doing some sort of an elimination diet. If I'm trying to cut down on gluten, um, which is my husband's worst nightmare. But yeah, so I think yeah, I know some people who have been on the carnivore diet and really love it and have seen the benefits, especially with like autoimmune type issues. But yeah, I think it's just personally for me, probably not in the cards.
I feel you. As someone who's gone on the carnivore diet, I do think it's one of my favorite diets. However, as you alluded to, some of the huge benefits that people have seen from going on the carnivore diet is like a crazy autoimmune fix. But the cases are so severe that that there's this incredible benefit to them being on the diet.
Hmm.
Personally, I don't really have any autoimmune issues. So going on it for me was more like an experiment. Like, what would this feel like for 30 days? And I felt pretty good. However, like I eat as I should about 70 to 75% of the time. I like food. So like I'll dabble here and there. I'm not very restrictive in my diet, mostly for my sanity, to be honest. I also don't have a goal like, hey, I'm going to be a bodybuilder on a stage. So, I think there's room for enjoyment there within the realm of what you can tolerate. I seem to tolerate most things pretty well, except like really cheap, shitty protein. That's probably the one thing that will like destroy me. But aside from that, I mean, I thought it was great. I felt good. It wasn't like kind of how like you see some people frame it as like do this for 30 days and fat is just gonna melt off your body, and you're gonna be this Greek god at the end of it, and like that wasn't my experience with it. I mean, I certainly slimmed down, um, but I've had way more definition just from adding more work and without changing too much to the diet. But again, I'm biased to the fact that I don't really have any major autoimmune issues, so the benefit's not that much. Not that there aren't that much, isn't that much of a benefit. Although grocery shopping is much easier because you're just buying.
Right.
For me, I'm just buying steaks, water, sometimes an avocado. Um, but it's much simpler. So the cost of having the balance diet, I mean, you end up buying a few more things than you should. But I enjoyed it. So you mentioned PCOS. Has that like I know you recently had two boys. Congratulations. I think
Thanks.
it's no small feat that with your strength to weight ratio being so high, you attempted for one and you created two humans. Did that ever like affect you in that process at all of doing that?
Basically, I know you've talked about this on a previous podcast, but I have basically with PCOS, I have slightly elevated testosterone. So my ovaries are producing a little more testosterone. So for a while, I wasn't ovulating. And I have a lot of follicles, a lot of eggs, but I wasn't ovulating; they weren't maturing. So, um, that piece of it was a long process, fertility wise, to get pregnant. Um, and I think there's genetic and environmental factors for me and what I went through. Um, I mean, even just being a child of the 90s, and all the endocrine disruptors and plastics and things is probably a part of it too. But yeah, it was tough, to get, you know, it was a long journey to get a successful pregnancy. Um, and definitely, yeah, a huge part of what I'm still, kind of working through. But yeah, I was blessed with two beautiful baby boys. And yeah, I forget like the main question you asked, but
Oh, I was just talking about like the journey and how that affected it.
yeah.
Um, were there things that you did like nutritionally to help along that road?
Yeah, so I mean, going back to when I was younger, I suffered from a little, disordered eating, body dysmorphia. I I was overtraining and undereating for a long time. I had amenorrhea, low bone density. There was a period of time where I broke like 6 bones in I think less than 2 years, and so
Wow.
that was a huge sign that like I needed to heal my relationship with food. Um, and I really started to do that more so in college, when I started studying exercise science and nutrition. Um, and I started realizing, the damage that I was doing to my body. So, food wise, for me, it's really key, like I said, to just, focus on getting, you know, I prioritize protein. So getting that, along with my carbs, healthy fats, in every meal. Um, and just, consuming more in general. So I'm not in such a deficit with how frequently I train. Um, and yeah, just a lot of anti-inflammatory foods. I try to stick to, fruits, veggies, ethically sourced proteins, lots of fish. Um, Obviously I got to take my vitamin D, fish oil, magnesium, all that I think is super important. Um, but yeah, so those are like the main changes I made nutritionally. And fortunately, since my pregnancy or since I had my boys, I was told that birth control basically was the only answer to um, treat the type of PCOS that I have. I wanted to try to heal it without birth control, especially since like with all the risks that come with birth control. I want to actually get like a factor, I think it's called a factor 5 test. But a family history of like blood clotting disorders, things like that. So to me it was important to really, heal my relationship with food and try to see if I can manage my PCOS by, you know, treating it with food. Um, so
So 6 bones in 2 years. How did you break them? Like you're just hanging
uh
out and you're like,
yeah,
ah, broken
a lot of
bone.
different, I think I broke a thumb, a pinky. I've broken my nose now like 3 times. And what else did I break? Broke my arm a couple times. But yeah, just playing sports and um I have 2 brothers, so I grew up in a very competitive environment. So a couple driveway basketball injuries and
Tripped,
yeah.
fell, hit a couple doorknobs. I get you. I know this story. If you need
Yeah.
help, you got my number.
Yeah. I actually broke my nose recently, getting headbutted by one of my children. So I had
Oh,
to have some reconstructive surgery to fix my septum. But yeah, lots of injuries over the years.
that's the worst. You can't even be mad because they're like your everything.
Yeah, it was so hard too in the moment because I didn't wanna, like, make him feel bad, but, yeah, I, like, ran to the mirror and was like, "Oh my god, it's my nose on the left side of my face."
Oh, man, I couldn't imagine.
Yeah, it's all good.
That's if that ever happens to me, whoever out there decides to bear my children, just understand that this is a real possibility. If my child breaks my nose and they're, like, under the age where, like, I can, like, slam him through, like, a plate glass window, so he's an adult in that situation. I'm dressing up in a monster costume, and I'm, like, slithering into the crib, like, in the middle of the night, like, we're inducing some form of horror as revenge.
Yeah, if you ever have boys, expect to be headbutted. I can't tell you how many times. I'm actually postponing my surgery a little bit because I'm like, I've already been hit in the nose several times since then. So,
Oh,
yeah,
the gift that keeps on giving.
yeah.
So you personally, as far as like training yourself, I've seen you've been leaning into Olympic lifting. What's kind of drawn you to that style of training?
So, I think I started in like 2018, 2019. Before I started the IVF process, I just really was interested in it. I wanted to, learn more about it. It looked really cool, but it also kind of scared me, especially like the snatch. Uh, so it was really something that I wanted to do to challenge myself in that regard, and it's also really like a mental workout too. So yeah, I started training with Paul in like 2018, 19. Then I had to take a bit of a pause while I was going through fertility treatments and IVF. And then yeah, post pregnancy, I think. So I was about a year postpartum. I had built up my strength a little bit and felt like I was ready to get back into it. And now, yeah, now I'm like obsessed all in it. That's kind of my main focus with my training right now. So
Considering with the amount of facial trauma you sustained, I can understand the fear.
yeah, yeah. I still get yelled at, yeah, to drop the bar. But yeah. Um, yeah, I really want to just, for me, my goals are to be as strong and fast and powerful as I can be, especially with two little boys. I gotta be able to keep up. So it just really hits all that for me, and yeah, I don't know, I love it.
Yeah, it's for those of you that don't know, Olympic lifting is super technical. So when obviously it happens in the Olympics, but it also happens in your neighborhood gym. Assuming you have some people around you. It focuses on really, really fast technical movements at a lot of velocity. So when you see someone throwing weight up over their head, like on a barbell, usually that's kind of what they're doing. So with it being so technical, so I'm not an Olympic lifting coach myself. I'm not an Olympic lifter myself. It's nothing I ever plan to dabble in, mostly for a lot of the things that we just discussed, where it's like a get whacked in the face with a barbell. I like to never give up, never quit. So I'll probably, destroy one of my joints because I'll be like, oh no, don't drop it. No, we got this. We can save it. And plus, I just don't want to like just get jacked up. I mean, I've seen videos of like people hit themselves in the face, teeth go flying, and they're like, "Oh, I almost had it." And I'm like, "Yeah, no, I'm good there. Like, we are all set. Like, I'll just pick this thing up and I'll put it back down very slowly and
Yeah.
normally." So with it being so technical, like, what differs from that? All right. So let's say like we were running through a 6 week block training where it's like, okay, I just want to gain 5 pounds of muscle versus if I'm getting into Olympic lifting, the drills and warm ups and stuff have to be different to kind of account for all that, right?
Yeah, so I guess warming up, I usually I'll warm up with an empty barbell, right? So you'll go through like, RDL, um, maybe some high pulls, some hang clean. It depends on what you're working on that day. So usually I'll have like, my training throughout the week. I'll have one workout that's focused on clean and jerk, one focus on more of the snatch, and one where I'm working on both. So it varies a little bit depending on what I'm doing that day, but you start with an empty barbell and, making sure you're, doing your squats, your RDLs, your high pulls, maybe hang cleans, maybe some overhead presses, and then um, you'll slowly start to go through the whole motion with the empty barbell and then add weight. So, say it's like a clean day, I'll do, the warm up with the empty barbell. Then I'll get into like hang cleans and then maybe the full, below the knee and then maybe full from the floor or something along those lines. But usually, the beginning, the first main exercises are, whatever you're focusing on. So whether it's, I'll do cleans and then jerks or my snatch, maybe snatch balance. Um, and then, you need your strength work as well. So we'll do, front squats, back squats, one of the two. Um, Maybe, barbell push press or overhead press. You know, Clean pulls, snatch pulls. So it's kind of like, kind of like a deadlift, but with a different grip. Um, and, at the end, I'll do like, I'll throw in some like lat work or, lunges or something just to get my, cover my bases. But
I got you. So it's kind of like you still do some of the same compounds just for the strength factor, and then when you put it all together in the drill, that's where you have a lot more velocity.
yeah, so yeah, you definitely want to work on those main lifts in the beginning. And that's, so you're not too tired. You're not going to put them at the end of the workout. But yeah, then you definitely want to continue to work on your strength as well. 'Cause otherwise it's going to be hard to, you know, progress. So
So, do you have plans to compete in the near future? Is that something, is that where you want to take it?
yeah, I would like to compete. I don't think I'm not there yet. Um, so yeah, if Paul's listening, I'm not ready yet. Um, Paul's my coach.
Paul,
Yeah.
shout out
Um,
to Paul. Paul, if you're listening, let's lock this in within the next 6 months. Trial by fire.
yeah. But yeah, I would love to compete. I want to build my strength up even more first, and get a little more consistent, especially with my snatch. It's funny how it works. Like, um, I'll go through phases where like my clean and jerk is really good. But my snatch sucks. And then all of a sudden snatches will start feeling really good and my clean and jerk will be off, but yeah, so I want to get a little more consistent. I want to get stronger. Um, and I think it would be really cool to compete and have my boys see me do a competition. But from what I hear, it's like a really um, cool community where everyone, kind of understands, even if you're a beginner, like that they've been there. And I think people kind of just, I've never been to one, but from what I hear, people, cheer each other on, and it's a good kind of environment to be in too. So
Yeah, community is always important. Like, it's good to have a good group of people to die with.
yeah. Like if I did a competition this year, I probably wouldn't, I would obviously want to place. I don't think I would though.
Not
um
with that attitude.
yeah, so yeah, I've got, I'm like 6 years away from where I want to be, but we're getting there slowly.
Nice. I like it. I wish you the best of luck. I will not be doing a competition of my own. Mostly for the previous fears alluding to my certain demise at the Olympic weightlifting attempt.
But you got
So
to practice that drop, throwing the weight,
yeah,
jumping the other direction.
yeah. I'm
Actually, very
like,
uh, safe sport, relative to other sports. As long as you can, learn that piece of it and get out of the way, you're good. But yeah, I'm definitely guilty of that at times.
yeah, I would be such a big offender And be like, "We got this," or like I throw it up and the bar just slips out of my hands and I throw it into the ceiling. I'm like, "Ah, shit."
That's what chalk's for, right?
Yeah, yeah. Assuming I have the use of all 10 of my fingers, then that'll probably help. But so when you build when you look at like some meals, like some go tos that you've experienced throughout your history with training, as far as like meals that you make, like what are some of the best, most convenient ones that you found?
I like a lot of different things. I'm a big breakfast person, so I really like I always do like eggs or like some sort of um there's this one meal that my sister-in-law made that comes to mind, but I make it all the time now. It's like ground turkey, uh red peppers, you can throw like broccoli or whatever in there. Um maybe like an egg on top, sweet potato. So you're getting like a lot of different things, maybe kale or whatever you want to throw in there. And that's always good. I always try to get in like vegetables with my breakfast because I hate like obviously I've mentioned I try to get in a good balance with each meal, but I hate like getting to the end of the day and being like, "Oh, I need to catch up on, my veggies or whatever for the day." So I was like getting those in early. Um and then yeah, I mean, salmon's always a go-to. That's easy with like brown rice or whatever. And then again, whatever veggie. Soups. I know we talked about this in the past, but
Soup.
soup and salad I think is a good way to get a lot of colors in. And cover your bases there.
I applaud anyone who's just like, "Oh, I can go for a soup," or "I enjoy soups." Like, it's been rare that I've had a soup that I didn't like. However, like, I don't know. My clients like harp on me all the time. They're like, "Oh, you eat like a toddler," because like breakfast for me, like in the morning, because my day starts at 6. Like breakfast for me is like an uncrustable and a protein shake, usually it'll be like a 4 to 5 egg scramble with a cup of rice. Sometimes I'll throw some spinach in there if it's not rotting in my fridge. And then the rest of it is the next 2 meals usually are a ribeye steak. That's it. A new favorite though has been like 7 ounces of ground beef and a full avocado. And then depending on my mood, sometimes I'll throw some barbecue sauce on it, or sometimes I'll throw salsa in it, make it into like a taco bowl. I found those are usually like my favorites.
Tacos great.
It's funny that you mentioned getting veggies in like the beginning of the day. I can't imagine like if I look at like my own diet, like no, you typically it's like I view it as a very like brave choice, and I applaud you for it. But the thought, like the only thing I've ever been able to get in was spinach, like mixed in a scramble and like mushrooms. But like here, here are my eggs with some broccoli, and it's like, oh no, like a lot of them don't go for me. But again, I'm not a huge breakfast person, so I don't try to get too creative with that.
But yeah, those are all good. Um, but yeah, I like mixing avocado actually with a lot of veggies. It's really good. Anything that butter goes with, I think avocado goes really well with too.
Super strange. Avocado works really well in a protein shake.
Oh,
And of course, you'd have to
I
blend
can
it.
see that.
But depending what you're making, like as long as there's enough things in it where it doesn't just taste like straight up avocado, like it's a good way to get some healthy fats in. Um, but yeah, yeah, I'm trying to think. What else do I eat a lot of? I eat a lot of like rice, Japanese barbecue sauce chicken. It's been my jam. I mean, my ultimate favorite meal is always going to be just plain spaghetti with a steak. Like
With a steak.
yeah, there's literally there's no meal better than that, in my opinion. Just plain pasta, spaghetti format with a nice steak. Especially after a workout or a day where they're like heavy lifting. Oh my God, it hits the spot.
Yeah, my husband's Italian, so his red sauce is like bomb. It's actually his grandma's recipe. But yeah, that's just awesome with anything.